Today we will be talking about abusive relationships. We're going to be talking about myths and facts about abusive relationships. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I will be reading an article from Women's Aid and sharing some of my own personal experience with abusive relationships. So let's read the first myth. Myth number 1. If it was that bad, she'd leave. Women stay in abusive relationships for many different reasons, and it can be very difficult for a woman to leave an abusive partner, even if she wants to. Like any other relationship, one that ends in abuse began with falling in love and being in love. Abuse rarely starts at the beginning of a relationship, but when it is established and often harder to leave. A woman may still be in love with her partner and believe him when he says he is sorry and it won't happen again. She may be frightened for her life or for the safety of her children if she leaves. She may have nowhere to go. She may have no financial independency. Abusers often isolate their partners from family and friends in order to control them, making it even more difficult for an abused woman to exit the relationship. Women in abusive relationships need support and understanding, not judgment. Okay, myth number 2. Domestic abuse always involves physical violence. Reality. Women's Aid defines domestic abuse as an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behavior, including sexual violence by a partner or ex-partner. These incidents can include coercive control, psychological and or emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, harassment, stalking, and or online or digital abuse. Okay, myth number 3, and this is a really important one, guys. Alcohol and drugs make men more violent. Many people use alcohol or drugs and do not abuse their partner, so it should never be used as an excuse for violence or controlling behavior. The perpetrator alone is responsible for their actions. Myth number 4. He can be a good father even if he abuses his partner. The parents' relationship doesn't have to affect the children. An estimated 90% of children whose mothers are abused witness the abuse. The effects are traumatic and long-lasting. When a child witnesses domestic abuse, this is child abuse. Between 40% and 70% of these children are direct victims of abuse, which happens at home. To find out more about children and domestic abuse, join our Child First campaign. Myth number 5, she provoked him. This myth is widespread and deeply rooted. It's often based in the belief that the man is the head of the family and that his role is to punish his partner or children if they act in a way he doesn't approve of. Abuse and violence of any kind is never the victim's fault. Domestic abuse is a private family matter and not a social issue. This is the reality. All too often when women disclose their abuse, no one listens to them and no one asks them what they would like to happen next. That's why Women's Aid developed Change That Lasts. It places the survivors at the heart and builds around her needs. It places the survivor at the heart and builds around her needs and the strengths and the resources available to her. Myth number 7. Pornography is not linked to violence against women. It is. I don't want to get into it because of the app I'm on, but it is. Women are just as abusive as men. This is myth number 8. Now, I don't really want to get into this one too much because I wanted to make this video for everyone. That includes men who are being abused. And the reality of the matter is men get abused too. Now, I think their stories are just as important as any woman's story. And I think that even if women are less likely to abuse, we shouldn't ignore men in abusive relationships. Now, that's not to say this article does that. It's just reporting myths and facts. But I feel like if I read further into this, men who are being abused or maybe non-binary people, anyone of any gender may feel less likely to, want to stick around. Maybe they feel like this isn't for them, and that's not true. Okay, myth number 9. Women often lie about abuse. Reality. sorry, false allegations about domestic abuse are extremely rare. This myth is extremely damaging because the fear of being called a liar can and does deter women from reporting the abuse they have experienced. Okay, myth number 10. Men who abuse women are mentally unwell. There is no research that supports this myth. Abuse and violence are a choice, and there is no excuse for them. I'm mentally unwell. I do not physically abuse my partner. I do not sexually abuse him. I do not emotionally abuse him. It's no excuse. Myth 11. Women are attracted to abusive men. Domestic abuse is prevalent throughout society, and it is not uncommon for a woman to experience abuse in more than one relationship. To suggest that some women are particularly attracted to abusive men is victim blaming. Men who abuse their partners saw their fathers abuse their mothers. Most of these people will never perpetrate domestic abuse in their own relationship, so it is never an excuse. And some of the most passionate supporters are child survivors of domestic abuse. So most people who saw abuse will never go on to abuse. That's important to know. Domestic abuse is a crime of passion, a momentary loss of control. 13. Domestic abuse isn't common. It is. 14. Domestic abuse is a crime of passion, a momentary loss of control. It isn't. So I was in a situation where I acted very shamefully and unforgivingly. I was living with some people who abused their child. The mother was a little bit more neglectful and abusive because when she was supposed to be watching the child, she just didn't, and it always kind of fell on me. Even though she'd say it wasn't my responsibility, I had to be the one to keep the kid from eating nails or eating tacks or choking on bottle caps, but we're not going to get into all that. Her husband was abusive too because he just didn't do enough, he didn't do enough around the house, and it made it harder on her and me because I was trying to pick up the slack. But he didn't directly abuse and neglect the child except when he smoked weed around the baby, and she smoked weed around the baby, and guess who else smoked weed around the baby? Because I didn't want them to feel bad, and I believed them when they said it was safe, and I thought I would be a bad friend if I judged them, and it all boils down to I was a very stupid, and bad person at that time. So after all the abuse of the child came to a head, and finally he told her to watch the kid, and she didn't, and it fell out of a trailer because he swung the door open, which I think might have been staged. I think he might have hurt his child on purpose, because in my heart of hearts, I think he was like, this is the perfect time to exact control over her. He took her phone, he threw it, and then she told me, and he also told me, that he backed her into the wall like this while shouting at her while she was holding their baby. Okay, now I didn't see that part because I was shaking and crying because of what had just happened, which happened because of me, because there were so many warning signs that child was about to be seriously hurt, and I didn't call CPS. I didn't call CPS until after I moved away from these people, and I will never forgive myself for that. But this isn't my redemption arc. This isn't about me. This is for you to learn from my mistakes. It was never her fault. It was never her fault, okay? I thought I might get physical and violent with her, but I never did. And I don't think I ever would have made that choice. He made that choice. And to blame her because she was abusive to the baby is just wrong, because they were both victims in the situation. And no child deserves that. No woman deserves that. And I'm going to go ahead and say no man deserves to have their baby abused either. But homeboy was definitely the primary aggressor. And she never put her hands on him. She didn't verbally, she did sexually assault a dog. But we're getting way too into the details of that. The point is, if you ever witness abuse of a woman, it ain't her fault. It ain't her fault. Okay, unless it's reactive abuse and he is just trying to protect himself in a lot of the same way that women do when they're being abused, it ain't her fault. Blame the abuser. Don't coddle him. Don't say, oh, it was a thing of passion. Be smarter than I was. And I hope this article has helped anyone in an abusive relationship realize they're being abused And if you need help, I will be linking Women's Aid down below so you can have someone to talk to. I've been in an abusive relationship myself, so I know how it feels. Bye-bye.